Hi, welcome to Prayers Radio. I'm Rich. This is my co-host, John Waterhouse. Ah!
Hello, everybody.
This show is only about prayer. Ernest Holmes, which is called spiritual mind treatment in our philosophy. John, you got it.
I want to introduce you to our guest today, an amazing man who is the senior minister at Center for Spiritual Living Common Ground in Central Maryland. He has been in ministry for just about 10 years, and that's all the official stuff I want to say. But I want to go further than that. This is an extraordinary man. This is a man who has turned all kind of things that could have made his life not work into his greatest strengths. He's someone who uses his life to demonstrate principle in every way. I adore him. He and I have been close for many years, and I welcome him onto our show today. Welcome, Reverend Rafe Ellis.
Good to be with you.
Hey, would you do us the pleasure of praying us in, Reverend Rafe?
Of course. Of course. And so just going within, recognizing the breath that is breathing me. I recognize it as the breath of life, the breath of consciousness itself, breathing itself, animating itself. And so I know that that is the only thing that is here. One power, one presence, one energy, one consciousness, individualizing itself in three, intentionally, one of a kind, never to be repeated animations of itself. And all those that are watching, the same is true for them. And so this is a time of the infinite expanding its experience of itself through itself. And I just claim the perfection of every moment of this time as whole, perfect, and complete, as the perfect unfolding of life in this moment of now. And I am grateful. And so I release my word, which is simply releasing anything in my human thought that would in any way impede my full experience of the word made manifest. I let it all go and stand solely in the power of the manifestation and realization of consciousness itself. And so it is.
And so it is. Well done.
It is.
Hey,
Thank you, sir.
so you're located over in Central Maryland, I believe, at cslcommonground.com.
That is correct.
Is there anything you'd like to plug about your church, or if tell people about
We are.
yourself?
It is an amazing community. It is a community that literally is living inclusion. Our bottom line as a community is nothing about you without you.
Hmm.
And they actively participate in every decision that is made with the understanding that they're participating. They're not making the decision. It's not a scenario where everybody gets their way, but it is a scenario where everybody's voice is heard and considered and matters. It is one of the most loving, transparent, engaged communities that I've ever experienced.
That's beautiful.
That was beautiful.
And that's who you are. So clearly they are a reflection of you as you are a reflection of them. So we're here to talk about prayer. And I'll just begin by throwing out a question about how you practice spiritual mind treatment in your own life. Where do you pray? How do you do that? What's important about that to you? Anywhere you want to go in all that. How is it a factor in your life?
It is synonymous with breath in my life,
Mm.
quite honestly. And it takes many different forms. If I get a prayer request, then there's a specific time that that happens when I get that request. If I'm sitting with someone in a hospital room, it happens there. On a personal note, it happens. I start my day with the first two steps of treatment. And then I continue in the third step all day long because I am in the realization of life all day long while I'm awake. And then at night before I go to sleep, I do the gratitude step and I release.
What a
And I
beautiful
get up and
practice.
do it all again.
That's fantastic. Good for you. I do something very similar. That's very nice. It's nice to hear that that's how you do it. What you got, Rich?
Well, what happens when you get triggered? I mean, we all go through the life and something happens, boom. What do you do?
Well, it depends on how triggered I am. If, and there are moments where things happen that are so profoundly stupid in this human realm that I forget that humanity is actually consciousness in form. And in those moments, my prayer literally starts with, "Hello, God. Do you have a supervisor I could speak with?" Because in those moments, I need to shift God outside of me till I can remember that it is me. Um, and I get there, but I allow myself to have some humor with it too. Because if I have humor, then creation has humor, or I wouldn't have. Um, and so, some people may view that as irreverence. I just view it as being 100% all
Mm,
of
Sounds honest to me.
it does, doesn't
yeah.
it? You know that.
Good for you.
Just to note for our audience, this show is about conversation, so we go off on tangents. Hey, go ahead and get the next question, John, if you would.
So I want to ask you about the shifting of energy in the midst of a treatment. So you're in your first and second step. You're clear about who you are, and then you go off on this thing that you probably can't see, you probably can't hear or touch or taste or smell, but your intention is to know that it's real. How do you do that?
So, what I'm aware of is that I really, truly have a deep, abiding belief that that third step is a realization, a making real. It's not asking for something to happen, it is realizing what already is in this moment. And for me, what happens is the deeper I go into that, the less aware I am in this physical body of the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Mm,
Uh, if somebody, I did a treatment recently in a group setting, and they asked me if I could repeat it, and I just cracked up. I'm like, no, because I don't even know what I said. Um, I'm pretty aware in the first two steps, but once I get that clarity that there's only one thing, that it is living as me. And I say it that way because if I say it as I am it, there's that human part that starts thinking it's God, and it's the other way around. God is the
Exactly.
human part. And so once I get that, I just get out of the way and let it speak. When I say my word, it's not Rafe's word. It is the infinite speaking itself into movement as me. Um, and ultimately, it's that clarity for me that prayer is a movement of consciousness. It's not a movement in consciousness. It is a movement of consciousness, that it literally is moving consciousness into action.
Brilliant. Beautiful.
wow. I'm still chewing on that.
In your work, you're in the middle of a treatment. You're again somewhere in the midst of this, at what point does it seem to kick in that this thing is already so, that it's already manifest?
You know, I don't know at what point that happens, but I know it. I'm aware that it has happened when my energy shifts to gratitude,
That's it. There
Mm.
you go.
right? That I mean, and when I teach these steps, it's real simple. I defy anybody to know what consciousness actually is, to really get that they are that informed, to let it speak through their body and not come to a place of gratitude. I dare you. I don't think it's possible for that to even happen.
Well, thank God for that.
How do you stay grounded in prayer? They say pray unceasingly inside the Bible, and a lot of people are like, "How do you do that?" I mean, do you do that, or is that something that?
I do that. I do that simply by recognizing that I am consciousness informed. Consciousness is always unfolding. So thought is prayer. I'm always thinking something. My awareness of what I'm thinking is not required for me to be in that, it's great if my prayers are intentional, and it would behoove us all to recognize that when we're less than intentional, we are praying accidentally.
Mm,
All
And
the time.
do I want to pray accidentally or intentionally? Because either way, I'm doing it all the time. Because prayer, again, is a movement of consciousness. Every thought is a movement of consciousness, either my aware thoughts or the thoughts that are operating under that waterline of the iceberg analogy. But mind is always creative, doesn't take a day off, there's no off switch. So it's about staying aware. And I can be aware and be completely ungrounded. I can be completely just at my wits' end and still remember the truth of being. They're not mutually exclusive.
That's a great way to look at it because a lot of people think they've failed if they fall into that. They think somehow they've lost their power, but it's not true.
I think somebody
Good
said.
for you.
I think somebody said it isn't really failure; it's research. It's the Edison theory. I've done it done it 1,000 times, and hey, it works now. Sort of like prayer when we do prayer. If you can't
One of
hold
the
it,
primary things that we do as ministers is teach other people how to do this prayer work. And it reminds me of chess in that you can learn how to move all the pieces, but that doesn't mean that you understand the game.
mm,
And so, because of that, I know there are 5 steps that we generally use, and that from that, there are many nuances that take time and attention to really catch on to and to realize that we're doing things. So, when you have a student who is doing a treatment aloud in a class, and it's very mechanical, and it doesn't seem to have what it would take to actually manifest it. How do you coach them? What do you teach them at that point?
So one avenue that I've used is pretty unconventional. I know that shocks you,
I knew we
John.
were going to get something like this.
Is the Pixar storytelling model.
oh,
Okay.
And it starts out with once upon a time,
Mhm.
and it just goes through these prompts. And I invite people to use that, starting with once upon a time, and to articulate their idea of God, of consciousness. Because when we can write a story about it, it becomes more real to our humanness. And, if people are stuck in the mechanical, then I take them through that story process to create this I thou relationship. And I think it's part of our biggest struggle, being in human form where everything looks, feels, tastes, and smells separate, to defy that level of appearance, to understand that we're not
Mm.
separate. And for me, that goes to relationship, and to learn to have a relationship with consciousness, the self relating to the self without being separate. And sometimes we got to start where we are. And so, if you need to put God outside of yourself to build a relationship with it in order to bring it inward, then let's go there. If you need to make it a fantasy, let's go there. We have free will. Consciousness doesn't care how we do it. And part of our journey, I think, is really getting clear about that. That
That's lovely.
consciousness doesn't care.
So what you're actually talking about is that that individual making that mental equivalent, as we call it in our philosophy, which I think is very important because it is individualized. I may see red, but you may see crimson. So that individualized mental equivalent is based on the individual. Would you say that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It always is. That's why we're individualized expressions of it. Because it couldn't expand its experience of itself any other way. It would just replicate it.
John actually brought up something very interesting. Remember the 1918 book on Ernest Holmes you were talking about?
Oh yeah, love and law.
Would you like to bring that up and ask that question?
Oh, I can bring it up if you want to talk about it on here. I wasn't planning on doing
I
that,
think
but
this is
I'm
conversations. This is something that's like I was like
I'm
listening to this.
reading Love and Law for the first time. It was edited by Marilyn Leo. It's written. It's actually transcripts of Ernest Holmes' early classes, and in there he talks about law. And my impression of law was always that law is this mechanism between cause and effect. That everything that we are cause, that God is cause, but that everything that is in any way physical is effect or conditional or however you want to put it. Everything else is effect. And in that book, Holmes posits the idea that law is not just the mechanism, that law is an effect. Law is an effect. I never saw it that way. I never thought of it that way. So that gave me a new way to look at it, which made me realize that as we think or speak a word, as we're creating that word, that thought, that element of consciousness, that we are simultaneously creating the law that will deliver it into physical form.
But
That it's all happening simultaneously, and it's not a thing out there, the law, that somehow we are oppressed by or restricted by in any way. That we're creating the law right along with everything else that we're creating. All righty then. He asked me a question, then he hooks me.
well, uh, Reverend Rafe, you had actually made a comment on that. I wanted John to give the overview of what we had on that, but you had actually had a comment on that. If you want to share that with us,
Well,
what is it, cause
and
or is it effect?
I will be reading this book shortly. Um, for me, I've always looked at law as the both and, because consciousness is a movement of itself into itself, acted upon by itself, which we call law, and manifested itself in form, which we call effect. Um, Early on, it helped me to understand the whole relationship by taking out the D in and, that
Hmm.
I cause an effect, to stop separating them as different things, cause and effect, because that's separation, and it's never separate. It's just consciousness expressing as form, and it gets there by law, by movement. And I love new thing to grapple with, right? Because that's what we do. We grapple.
You know,
Isn't that fun? Isn't that fun when we get to even as long as we've been doing it, there's still things that pop for us. I love that.
Yes.
the hook thing a minute ago. If any of you have ever gotten a conversation with a bunch of reverends, they just keep going on, and they will talk, and that's what we do on this show. This is conversations. Come on. Hey, what's your favorite Ernest Holmes book, Reverend Rafe?
The 1926 edition, Ernest Holmes, Straight No Chaser, before the editors got a hold of him.
No chaser. That's funny. So can I ask another question?
Yeah, it's your turn.
So you're working with a member of the community, and they say you treated for me and nothing happened. What do you do?
Well, we get to have the conversation about what nothing is to start with.
Yes.
Because if nothing happened, why are we talking? Because it may not have happened the way you thought it was going to happen, but something happened. And so let's start with what nothing is. Because I have found it incredibly helpful to meet folks right where they are rather than to negate. You know, somebody comes to me and said nothing happened, and I right out of the chute go, well, something happened. Now I've completely disconnected the conversation.
No, you
And so,
haven't. Keep
okay, well,
going. Keep going.
tell me what nothing is. Tell me what nothing is. I have I have done treatments for people after service as a practitioner and gave what I thought was an amazing treatment, only at the end for them to look at me and go, you forgot to say red. Okay. And in that scenario, is would you like me to treat again? Um, Ultimately, I'm not treating to change their mind. I'm treating in mind. The treatment, I mean, and we talk about it as, the practitioner, the minister is treating in their own consciousness. And sometimes I wish we would stop saying that because it suggests that there's a different consciousness, that there's my consciousness and your consciousness. We're just treating in consciousness. And a new thought is available. A new perspective is available, but I can't make you receive it any more than you can make me receive it. And so it's already manifested exactly as we choose it. It is done unto us as we believe. So if I don't believe it's possible, you can't pray hard enough for me to get it because I have turned off the tap.
There you
So
go.
there will be no flow.
John, he said this.
Well said.
He said this so eloquently. John was saying, Reverend, this was very well said, John. I thought, what do you think?
I warned you about him.
You did. You did. He said he's got a way of just saying it. What's your favorite Ernest Holmes quote?
You
My
said
favorite Ernest Holmes quote?
1926.
No, that's the book.
It actually is in one of his later writings that I'm still trying to get a copy of, but I read it once and I've never forgotten it. Many of us believe that we create reality. This has never been true. Thinking the world was flat never made the world flat. It simply flattened our experience of it.
Absolutely.
That's the takeaway.
Our thoughts do not create reality. Yeah.
So,
Go ahead, John.
Rich, are we? Do we have more time?
Yeah,
how
we're at the 5-minute mark right now.
Okay, very good.
So expand on that. Our thoughts don't create reality.
Well, it's very convenient. It's a convenient belief to say that I create my own reality. It's not true. It's never been true. There is one reality that created us. Right. But it's a metaphysical version of, you know, we create God and we say that we are created in God's image. All the time we are recreating God in our image. And that's just the metaphysical version of that. I create my own reality. Well, no, you don't. There is one reality, it created you. And going back to this whole topic of prayer, the whole point of prayer is to make consciousness real,
Mm,
to realize it, to make it real as our experience. And as long as I one off myself as having the agency and authority to create my own reality that somehow doesn't impact or affect you in the concept of one, with all due respect, that's just horse hockey. Can't possibly work that way. There can't be anything that doesn't impact the whole in the truth of one. There can't be.
And clearly, none of us at the level that we are playing this game on the planet Earth, uh, playing being human, we obviously can't perceive the highest reality of spirit of life. That we are kind of focused where we can, and it's about our own individual life. And the more we focus on that, the better it gets. But you're right. Outside of that, we are not. Anyone that says that they have that total reality is deluding themselves. So
Okay.
just take what you got and keep going.
I think we glimpse it in the
Yeah.
deep silence of meditation, but the moment we try to articulate it, now we have lost it.
Well, and the
Because,
perfect example would be Ernest Holmes standing on stage at a church in California, and suddenly going to that place of the veil being pulled away. He had no words. A man who was an orator for a living had no words and had to sit down.
yeah,
That's how it's done.
because you can't, there's no way we can accurately speak about the infinite with finite words.
Absolutely,
so we have
absolutely. Which makes the game all the more fun.
so we have about 3 questions left, and then we're going to have you pray us out. Uh, how does spiritual mind treatment show up in your life? I think you covered that already.
I think he has.
Yeah. So the next question would be, do you use a 5-step or 7-step prayer as a preference?
I don't ever think about that, quite honestly. Um, I use what is necessary for me in the moment. Um, Sometimes, case in point, the day my son died and I learned about his death on Facebook, I needed some denials because I needed to remind myself of what God isn't, what consciousness isn't, before I could remember what it is.
That was quite a
And
journey.
it was quite the journey. Um, and so it just depends on the situation. If I am confused at all, then it's helpful for me to use denials
Mm,
to bust that thinking loose that is keeping me from realizing what's true.
mm,
And for anyone that doesn't know about that, I would add to that that if you're going to use denial, if you're going to say this is not so, you must then immediately fill in what it is,
Yes.
because you're not going to live in that void very long.
no, you won't.
And chances are it'll come back if you don't replace it. So
You-
that's
Yeah.
an important piece for me.
For my,
Absolutely. And that's where it's helpful is to say, this is a lie. It's not this. This is what's true. This is a lie. This is what's true. Um, because sometimes we get stuck in the lie, depending on how deeply our humanness is impacted.
you could also ask God
So
to. Go ahead, Joe.
before he prays out, I have a gift for Reverend Rafe.
Well, we have to ask him one other question.
Okay, one other question.
All right. What would you want our audience to take away from this show today?
To really get that you are praying without ceasing. That it's not an option. It's an option, the form of prayer, but to not pray is not an option because it suggests that consciousness has an off switch and it doesn't.
Mm.
And so being aware of that empowers you to choose to pray without ceasing by intention or just to pray accidentally.
Mm.
You get to choose.
Well, with that being said, we're going to do two things. I am Rich. I am Prayers Radio, and my co-host is John Waterhouse. And we thank our guest, Reverend Rafe Ellis, from coming on. If you would pray us out, please, sir.
Before he prays, I have that gift.
Okay,
All right.
got to get that
The
gift.
gift is a Hafiz poem that I want to direct right at you, Rafe. And it goes like this. The first time I saw you, I knew we would be friends. The first time I heard you laugh, dear pilgrim, I knew it would not take me long to turn you back into God. Pray us out, my friend.
Is one power, everywhere present, nameless, changeless. Nameless because it can never be contained by one idea. Changeless because it already is infinite possibility. And yet we know it by many, many names. The relationship, the name, the journey, bridging the apparent separation of human form with the essence itself. And so as I recognize this one as the only thing there is, I recognize that it is expressing itself as this person that I call Rafe. That I am a one of a kind, never to be repeated, intentional, purposeful, smile in the heart of creation itself to experience itself as this life I am living. That it empowers me with itself. So the agency of creation itself is the agency that is within me. Unencumbered, unfettered, pure grace to choose. And so I speak my word, which is the word of the infinite, speaking through and as me, speaking itself into being, that I am a center of its expression. That the activity of this thing I call my life is the harmonious operation of one. That as I choose to become aware of the truth of my beingness, I am instantly aware of the beingness of all because there is only one. That I celebrate diversity and the individualized expressions of this one as holy and sacred, no matter what. That I see beyond conditioned, beyond choices, to the truth that exists at the center of every expression of being. And knowing that what I speak for myself in the truth of one is spoken for the whole. And so I claim and affirm that this is now available to be chosen by every expression of life. The harmonious operation of one, a world that does work for all, is already present, already here, already available, waiting in repose to be chosen, to be activated, to be lived. And as I speak that, I feel the celebration of that in every fiber of my being. That hallelujah that will not be denied because it is the truth made manifest. And so I celebrate. I celebrate that activity, that doer within the creative process that has no waiting period, that has no filter. It simply says, got it done. And it is. And so knowing that, I can let go of all of the static in my human thinking that thinks I need to do something. I can release my word from the constraints of my own restrictions so that it is fully manifest and experienced. And so I let go of all the fear, all the doubt, all the resistance. I let it all go and stand in the truth that it is done. And so it is.
So it is.
It is.
Well, join us next week. John, what is your site again?
My site,
Your Substack.
you can go to Mystic Living Press and find my a web or a page on me. That's my publisher's spot. My new book is called Spirits Awakening, and I also do a podcast called Higher Reality, which you can find on Substack and YouTube and what's that other one called? One of Meta's products. Oh, I think it's Facebook. Yes.
And Reverend Rafe, where can they find you again, please? Your website?
The website is cslcommonground.com.
And we are Prayers Radio, and we will be signing off, and we'll see you next week. Your prayer is mine.